coming up next week. The next speaker today is someone that I know quite well. Has been already properly introduced by our opening remarks person who left with her scroll. So if you really want to know any more, just Google me and you'll get all the gory details. But at any rate, I thought that this would be an excellent opportunity to talk about the history of Naval Postgraduate School Toastmasters. And so I will turn my head around and introduce myself. And the next speaker is Carl Frohnmeyer. The actual anniversary of the club is the 16th of February, and if you, where do you go? It was there, and I passed it around. The charters get a little dog-eared, a little brown. I try to keep it as protected as I can so it doesn't totally fade. And it says, "The witness thereof that said corporation has caused this charter to be signed by its president and executive director and has affixed its corporate seal to this 16th day of February, 1971. And that was actually presented to the club at the charter meeting. Now the club actually got started, the formation of it was actually started in January of that year. We used to have a club at Fort Ord, and that particular club actually took the lead to sponsor the Naval Postgraduate School Club. And so we had a demonstration meeting over in Ingersoll 121, the big theater room over there. At the time, Ingersoll was a pretty new building, so you kind of get an idea how old the club is. And there were quite a few people there, I'd say probably close to 100. And out of that, the club was actually formed very quickly, within a month's time. And the charter was awarded on the 25th of February of 1971, which was either a Friday or Saturday night, I don't recall. But it was actually at a dinner meeting that we held over in the Lenovia room over in Herman Hall. And the charter was actually presented by the district governor of that time, a gentleman by the name of Roger Quadra, who went on to become an international director. And he lived up in Santa Clara. He came back for our 20th anniversary and our 25th anniversary and our 30th anniversary dinners and recreated the charter presentation. And it was a real thrill to have Roger back and do that, even 30 years after he was the district governor. Now, unfortunately, I have to tell you that he passed away last December and won't be around to do the 40th, which will come up in a couple of years, so we'll come up with somebody else. But at any rate, Roger was a big fan of this club and always supported us. But we were off to a pretty fast start. Now, I was actually at the charter meeting. I think Fred alluded to that earlier in his introduction. I was not a charter member. I was a member at the time of Monterey 934, which at the time was an evening club and is now a morning club. But I was there, and at the time I was kind of in between jobs. I was a past president, and I was going to be the next area governor. So I was sort of an assistant area governor at the time, and so I was able to participate in the charter meeting. So we were off to a real fast start. At the time, the club was limited to Naval Postgraduate School officers. Anybody, if you were a student here, you were eligible to join. So it was a closed club. And that became a problem after a while. But before it became a real problem, in fact, let me just refer to my notes here. I got away from my notes and lost the train of thought. But so we were off to a fast start in 1971, so much so that we actually hosted the District 4 conference that fall. And the banquet was in the Robert McDitt Ballroom over in Herman Hall. We had the various meetings at different places on campus. So it was a big start. Now, it was mentioned earlier that in 1973, Toastmasters were able to accept women as members. And that's a speech in itself. But because we met on federal property, we didn't have a choice. If a woman wanted to join NPS Toastmasters, they had to be allowed to join. And so we actually had 3 women join the club in February of 1972, which was a year and a half before Toastmasters International actually voted to approve it as a club option at the time in August of 1973. So there were other people throughout the nation that took advantage of this so-called loophole as well. And one of those people, Helen Blanchard, joined a club in San Diego about the same time, also meeting on federal property. She went on to become the first female international director and the first female international president of Toastmasters International. And I think there was, if I recall, a couple of Toastmasters magazines ago, there was an article about her in that. So you might want to go back and take a look at that. Well, anyway, The club at that point, after that initial hefty start, faded a bit, and by the fall of 1973, we were down to 7 members. So the club says, you know, we really got to do something about this. And so at that time, the club decided to open the membership to outside people and to basically anyone who wanted to join and could get on campus. So it became an open club at that time, and slowly the club grew back into the upper teens of membership and pretty much hovered in that area in the mid-70s until about 1977. So to put that in perspective, about half the total membership that we have now. Our membership ranges 35 to 40 the last 2-3 years. And granted, not everybody shows up every week, but that's the total membership. So in 1977-78, there was a large influx from outside the military sphere. A lot of people from what is now the Naval Research Lab, myself from Fleet Numerical Meteorology and Oceanography Center, and basically other people, also civilians at the postgraduate school. And I don't think there was more than 1 or 2 officers in the club at the time, but the club really grew. And at one point, the average attendance in mid-1978 for about a 2-month period was 21 to 27 members and 3 to 6 guests every week. That went on for about 2-3 months. And on the 13th of October 1978, we had 27 members and 5 guests present at that meeting. And that record stood until recently, and I'll talk about that in a few moments.